This is the first driver with the shaft to match the head and club face to match your swing. I'm like, cool story, bro, but are you kidding me?
How you living? No putts given. Tony's dog sitting mode. Who knows what we got going on?
She is not having it today. All right.
It's a veritable cornucopia of madness and whatnot. But
it's winter break here in New York, so wife and kid are home. Dog is just
winter break. What is that?
Yeah.
Is that
it's like spring
happened,
break only, but in the winter?
Do you get a spring break too, in addition to a winter break?
Nobody goes to school anymore. It's a joke.
Talk about Ludwig Aberg. He might be the next big thing on tour. He's young. He seems to kind of have it all together. A classic swing. I mean, it doesn't look like much can go wrong with his swing. He bombs the ball. He hits it far. He's a little inconsistent at times, but man, you gotta. I mean, if you want to name 5 people that have a higher ceiling than he does in this kind of 25 and under class, I'm not sure.
You can't get to 5. You may not be able to get to 2.
You know, he's up there. I love looking. Again, it's equipment stuff. So let's take a peek inside his golf bag. A couple things. He's by and large a Titleist guy, so you're not going to be surprised to see, latest T-Series irons. He's a T100 guy for the most part, Vokey wedges. Here's where it gets a little interesting, though. First 3 days of the tournament, he's playing GT2 driver. Led the field, I believe, and off the tee in terms of strokes gained off the tee, at a little more than a shot per round, which, you know anything about Torrey South, keeping it in between the goalposts, vitally important there with the cabbage.
Just don't be in that rough.
Ooh, the cabbage you got to play out of. I mean, Rory bombed it all over the place, but his accuracy, see what happens when you're not accurate. But then he switched to TSR2 for the last day, the day in which he ended up winning. He started the day, I think, 2 shots back and ended up winning. Any sense we can make out of that? I was scouting.
I mean, yeah, we heard any explanation. Like it's one thing if he was driving it piss poor and it was like, all right, I got 1 round to fix the driving. If I can be lights out, I'll be good. But as you said, he was driving the ball well.
Yeah,
so I don't know if it's one of those things. If you're just like, all right, this one's, the subtle differences between models. If you felt like, all right, I'm just starting to leak a little too right with this one, for example, and I need to bring it back. Like I can understand it if there's, just a subtle difference, a subtle change he felt he needed to make for that round. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, my first hunch was like, maybe there was something that happened. He cracked the shaft. He did.
Could be.
There's something, but I don't know. So I'm not going to read into that one too much.
And you don't know. It's always an unknown, but throw it out as a possibility. I don't have any insight on this, and Titleist works hard to keep this from happening, but you never know, right? If could be a case of the USGA doing a random check and saying, "Hoop, no good."
Yeah,
So, I mean, again, speculation. I don't know. Probably not.
I'd be interested just because GT is one now. And like we said, now that we've seen it's been out on tour, obviously a lot longer than the others because it's was launched mid last year. So players that have switched, to GT3, GT2, etc. That's not when the people have kind of bounced back and forth. That'd be an odd one. So should there become more information, that story will tell you. But Fairway Woods, Stealth 2, 2 things I absolutely love about his Fairway Woods. Number one, again, it's a little off contract, right? So he's saying, hey, here's what works best for me. And it's not QI10. It's not QI35. So these are technically, 3 generations old if you want to go there. And they work best for him. I love that. If you find a Fairway Wood, particularly Fairway Woods hybrids, anything that works best for you, works well for you, stick with it. Best players in the world are doing it. Stick with it.
And then they've got the interesting combination of 3-wood, 7-wood.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't see that a ton. Usually on tour, it's become 4-wood, 7-wood has become more common.
Yep.
But sticking with the traditional nominal loft 15 degree. I'm not positive how he has it adjusted, so could be tuned a little bit, but 15 degree nominal loft and then to the 21 degree 7-wood. So that's kind of cool. Love that. Anytime you see a 7-wood in a tour bag.
Yeah. Yeah, again, the more players you look at, it's not necessarily about having the newest thing. It's having the one that works, best for you. Then, no surprise. Well, a little bit of a surprise maybe, but no surprise that, he has an Odyssey putter. It's the number one played putter on a lot of tours. I'm not sure how many people know that or would be surprised to understand.
Number
Tour,
one by a little on PGA Tour, number one by a lot on most other professional tours.
Yeah, it's kind of more of that landslide once you get to other tours. PGA Tour not as much, but there you have it. And I want to say he was one of the guys that moved right into the 25 Pro V1X as well. So
looking at this putter, I mean, looks old as dirt too, right?
I know.
The Versa 1 finish worn off the sole. I mean, this is life lessons to be had here.
And then Hideki seems to change putters every week at least, if not more often. Sometimes middle of a round, who knows? But again, find what works for you, and golly, I know we're all about talking about new equipment, and we do all the time, and it's fun because it's cool to see and all these things. But newer doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be better, and better doesn't mean that it's going to be better for you. So there's some caveats in there, I guess. All right. I'm going to check that one off the list. Anything else you want to note about Ludwig?
No.
He's awesome. Is he going to win a major this year?
No.
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
He's going to win a major.
You're wrong.
He's going to win a major. Yeah. Watch out. He's coming. Let's talk some other golf equipment stuff. So we got some new things out, and then we'll get into...
this is a week of me being mostly cynical, I think, but let's have at it.
And that's different from other weeks?
This is kind of the especially so. I think.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
How about this one? Okay. King Tour Mini. I saw your post, and we saw this before it hit the conforming list. I'm not sure we ever mentioned it before, but this was kind of a looking to be like a tour prototype. Again, another entry into the mini driver, 2-wood. Whatever space you want to call it.
So version 2 of this prototype popped up this week. Version 1 was a little ahead of some mid-January, early January, I think. And so we asked the Cobra guys at the show, and right now they're saying, yeah, this is legit prototype. No impending plans to come to retail. So that's where we are. They're talking about Ricky Fowler and the Masters, that kind of thing, right? We've kind of seen them go to that similar kind of like, hey, let's create a one-off for a couple shots at Augusta type of thing.
Right.
I still think it'll come to retail. If for no other reason, it's probably not a huge lift production-wise, and we know it's shaping up where, all right, PXG, Secret Weapon out,
right?
GT 280 from Titleist coming.
Right.
New Callaway Elite Mini on the USGA list within the last couple of weeks. We know that's coming.
Yep.
TaylorMade's going to have one coming.
I think TaylorMade's going to have at least 4.
Yeah, so that's the category is there. Like most of the major players, we haven't heard any rumblings from Ping.
Yeah, Ping's the interesting one that we haven't heard anything from yet. But
yeah, so I think there's going to be enough out there where you're going to want to be in the mix. So
yeah,
I think
you're going to want to have some kind of seat at the table, I would imagine. So
yeah,
it's there. Because you want to be cynical, let's go right to this one. LA Golf. Let's talk La Golf.
Yeah.
Give us the brief recap for people that maybe were going LA Golf. Who the hell is LA Golf?
Yeah, so this is interesting. Like, I've heard of LA. Most of our readers, listeners, whatever, have heard of LA Golf. We've talked about LA Golf. So I had to go back and look it up, but it blew my mind that LA Golf has been around for going on 7 years.
Yeah.
I would have guessed if you'd said 3, I'd have been like, that sounds right. But we kind of first heard about them when they
right.
They bought kind of the assets, the IP, everything left over from the Matrix Shaft Company collapse.
Right.
the plan was to have it built on the, what is it, Marucci? Is that the brand name?
Yeah,
The baseball bat
bats,
guys, kind of player owned, if you will, and they've had success with that model in Major League Baseball, where guys have a stake in the company, they play the product, they raise
in
awareness
lieu
of
of
the
like
product.
pay to play. It's hey, we'll
Right.
give you
Yeah.
shares in the company kind of deal.
So it's worked in baseball. It started with the shafts. I don't, I wouldn't say that they've taken off. Like, they get some play, but it's
No,
Bryson, it's
it's
Dustin Johnson, it's that, but it's not widespread. Not widespread at the consumer level, and admittedly, that's super tough in the shaft category if you're not in an OEM lineup. And we're, almost to its credit, I don't know what their objective is necessarily, but I appreciate it whenever a shaft company doesn't offer watered down bullshit to hit an OEM price point. So kudos on that. So started as the shaft company, became a putter company when it bought Sick Golf for its descending loft technology in the faces. And again, same technology that Cobra licenses for all of its putters, the 3D printed stuff. And I think, for me, in terms of, hey, what we think is a viable technology that has value actually works, probably, in my estimation, the most valuable thing in the LA Golf catalog is that intellectual property.
yeah.
A few years ago, LA Golf Ball came out. $70 price point, I think.
It's
so
like 65, $70.
Yeah.
It was, and at that point, others were like in that 45, 50. So it was a good
absurd,
$15, $20.
absolutely absurd. And to be clear, like the ball performs really well. It is, in terms of some of the crap that we've seen, it doesn't qualify as that. It's a good ball. It belongs in the conversation with Maxfly and Vice and those kind of DTC brands in terms of performance. Launch Technologies produced it. Step down in quality from the foremost balls I just mentioned, those Max Flies and the Vice. So for that reason alone, I'd be reticent to pay that price point. I think $40, $35 is a more realistic price point for that ball. Currently listed as out of stock, $54. And I don't know if it's ever coming back. Maybe a new one's in the works. Maybe it got, fell victim to the Launch Tech fire and that was the end of it. So we'll see.
Sure.
But again, a good product at the wrong price point, in my estimation.
Well, and
that brings us to...
Yeah, that brings us to the drivers where, like I said, it's, to me, they've been... Anytime with, when a company hits the market and comes out, and I'm not saying you can't revamp your approach, change your approach. Companies do that all the time. But I never really got a handle or a sense on who or what it was supposed to be. Like I said, originally you had the shaft idea. They brought over a guy named John Oldenburg, who's no longer there anymore. Actually, he's over with Ping now, who's, again, longtime industry vet. They tried to get some good talent in-house to help with this. Super high price point, like signature series stuff. Hey, these are Bryson's iron shafts. This is DJ's driver shaft, blah, blah, blah. They were kind of going this model elite up here. We saw that with the ball, and you got wonky pricing there. Like I said, quality wise, it's a $35 ball, but with a $60
it's sort of like this
tag.
Weird, like, original PXG meets sub 70 kind of vibe. Like, I don't, like I said, I don't know. Yeah,
that's like, I don't totally get. It's not a like, it just didn't line up.
Yeah, and they've kind of settled a little bit. Like, prices have come sensible, but still premium, but sensible, not like outlandish anymore.
So that's where I need you to help explain to me then, where does this driver fit? So we're seeing this new driver.
And this one, I'm like,
Face ID, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
so help me understand where this fits in the
So they are now, so everyone understands, LA Golf is now pre-selling its first ever drivers. There are 5 models available. And I'll tell you the model names first before we get into what appears to be the technology claim. So you have the 1312, the 1211, the 1010, the 99, and the 87. Those are the Face ID names, which are for now the only sort of model numbers associated with the individual models. Okay. So, and they're being billed, and this is where I start to like just bang my head into a wall a little bit. So these are being billed as the first driver with a shaft or a face and a shaft to match your swing. And that seems some indication that comes from a quote from from Bryson. This is the first driver with the shaft to match the head and club face to match your swing. I'm like, cool story, bro, but are you fucking kidding me? Like, honestly, because
what is it?
I mean, this whole idea of like, this is the first time we've ever tried to tailor my reading on based on how they spell out the differences, right? Because it's all about optimizing the bulge and roll of the face to match the swing speed. And so when I hear that the first ever to do this, I'm like, come on, man. Like either you don't know what others are doing, which strikes me as confounding for anybody entering the driver market. Either you have no idea what your competitors are actually doing, or you don't want golfers to know that other people have already done what you're saying you're the first to do.
Yeah, it's their new take on something that's existed. So let's break those down, though, because, when we talk bulge and roll, so they say basically what they're doing, right, is getting a unique face ID. So we're thinking somehow the face of the driver based on bulge and roll characteristics, right? So on all of your drivers, this is just a Callaway AI paradigm that we got.
And I'm really glad you brought that model because I'll explain in a minute why. But
okay. Well, I did this on purpose because I thought you might go there. So faces are, as much as they might look straight from the side, they're not. There's curvature that goes this way. And then there's also curvature that goes heel to toe. So you have curvature top to bottom, and that would be the bulge.
Is that the roll? I think top to bottom is the roll.
So top to bottom is the roll. Heel to toe is the bulge. So, and again, those aren't necessarily uniform. So we're not saying that the radii is entirely consistent top to bottom or right to left. But anyway, long story short, driver faces aren't flat. They have curvature to them. What's interesting about this one? Like I said, I picked the Callaway one for a reason.
Yeah. So again, kind of going back to come on, guys, you're not the first to do this by any stretch. So when we talked about that lineup in particular last year, Paradigm, AI, Smoke, right? One of the talking points was how to simplify fitting, to make it easier for golfers to find the right model. Callaway looked at a metric shit ton of player data and basically broke the designs up into player type buckets. So defined by things like your swing speed, your attack angle, your path, your consistency of impact, defining player types, putting those players into buckets, and then having driver designs match up with that. Now, in the case of Callaway, those designs include things like different head shapes,
right?
Different CG locations to optimize flight for the different types of golfer. And yes, different face topologies, different face designs optimized for the player who will be using, or the target player for that design. So again, you can say, yeah, they had a driver face to match the swing of the player. Right. Building on that, when we talked to Ping about the G430 lineup, right? Again, going on 2 years ago. And these are just recent examples. We've been having these conversations for as long as I can remember.
Right.
We talked specifically about how Ping had taken insights gleaned from the stack system.
Right.
And used that to inform the bulge and roll radii design, and specifically talking about the LST at the time, how that they had tweaked it from previous designs. And again, noting that the bulge and roll radii on the LST is different from the Max, different from the SFT, right? Different designs optimized with different face designs for the different players. In the case of LST, designing it to kind of not necessarily overcook the correction on the toe miss for the higher swing speed player, right? To keep it from coming too far back. Right, yeah.
Right.
So again, this idea that, hey, this has never been done before, that's BS. It's been done over and over and over again by just about everybody. And then to go, oh, and the shaft, come on, like everybody has been trying to pair the shaft with the head with the golfer forever. And so I'm like, okay, you're trying to carve out a unique spot here. I can appreciate that. But then when I look deeper, and again, right, there's not a ton of information here. You're kind of just going off on what is on the website, the LA Golf website. But you hope it is accurate. If you scroll through the photos associated with the 9.9, for example, you hope that accurately represents the 9.9, as do any photos of the 12.11, for example. And then so looking at that, what I can see is all of these drivers have the same general face shape, the same body shape, the same aerodynamic features. So from what I can tell, based on what is available on the site that LA Golf uses to currently sell these to golfers, The only thing that is different is the bulge and roll radii, the face topology, if you will. And what that tells me is that LA Golf is pulling a single lever where everybody else who designs a driver pulls multiple. And again, I'm open to hearing more about the story and how there could be more than bulge and roll to this. Right. But again, based on the information, the photography, everything that is on the website, that is all there is. It's one lever compared to a bunch. And for $650 from a company with no history in the category and no R&D stuff, legacy of R&D in the category as well, I'm like, tough sell. Like, I want to see it. I'm certainly curious. Yeah. But man, I just don't get one shape. Yeah, I don't get one head shape for everybody who swings from 89 to 135, for example. So
yeah, I have questions. Yeah. I like you said, where I land on this one is, like I said, I applaud the effort. I love the concept. And again, we're not saying that paying attention to bulge and roll for different golfers is a bad approach. It isn't.
No, definitely not.
It's a great approach. It's just, it's not at all new.
And what the curiosity for me, because we've heard about this for years. Like I was at a Cobra event one year, and the night before, Bryson had dragged R&D into a dinner and basically told them that he felt like they were doing bulge and roll all wrong, and he had some ideas about it. So this isn't a new concept for Bryson, and I think that's where all this is coming from. Bryson has some ideas on how bulge and roll should work and how it should be able to correct to the point where any miss goes straight. That's great thinking. Like, hey, if that works out, if all of this does that where any miss goes straight, then I stop caring. I stop caring that the shapes are all identical and they haven't apparently done much else. Like focus solely on this. Right. But there is an inherent risk of saying, hey, this is Bryson's idea and it seems to work for Bryson, so we're going to apply it to everybody. Yeah. Man, we've talked about prototype 1 of 1. Right. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm a little suspect on everything right now, but I'll see. Yeah. I'll be curious to check it out. I want to hear more. And hopefully when these go from pre-sale to for sale, for real sale, there'll be a whole lot more on how they got there, where their information comes from, the data that informs the various topologies. Because right now is like, we figured this all out. Take our word for it. And we'll take your 650.
One of these 5. Yeah, and I really want to know too with the shafts how they're doing that part, because if anything, my kind of thinking around what shaft is best for me at different times has been a little bit upended based on kind of what we learned with TaylorMade and looking at like face closure rates and some of these things. And so just to be able to say, hey, here's the right shaft for you based on these certain characteristics. Well, you can take 10 people who swing at 100 miles an hour and they all get there 10 different ways. And that could necessitate 10 different golf shafts to optimize. I'm not saying you can't maybe find one shaft that works pretty well for most of them, but if you really want to optimize for each individual golfer, and I would think if you're paying $650, you don't want the driver that's good, kind of a one size fits most approach with things that you have. You want the one that's like, hey, this is really dialed in for me.
And it's, looking at this, right, I'm not seeing, and as I go through the shaft options, I'm not seeing anything that's new, which sort of feels like the head is being, the shaft is retrofit to the head. Like, we've already had these and we haven't, we're pairing them up, but we're not creating a perfect harmony necessarily. Right. Again, we'll see. And everybody has a story to tell. And, LA Golf would certainly not be the first to play fast and loose with some of the particulars in the interest of a good story. So I'm not going to fault them for it. I'm just saying, like, I need more than I've got now.
Let's go from something where we have a lot of questions to maybe something where we have fewer questions. TaylorMade P790, new iron, not new model, I should say, updated model. It's not a new model, but first of all, what do I need to know about this particular iron? And then secondly, I want to dive into whether or not you think that this iron is reasonably the face of Player's Distance, meaning this is kind of what started it all. We'll get to that in a sec, but tell me what I need to know first. What do I need to know about new P790?
Yeah, I mean, it's as you would expect at this point. We are 5 generations into P790, best-selling iron in the category. TaylorMade's not going to reinvent this wheel. No. And so it is subtle upgrades. For me, kind of the biggest change is a new face material. So if you care, it's 4340M forged face. Basically just allows TaylorMade to create a thinner face. Thinner is faster, you get more distance. They're also saying it makes the sweet spot 24% larger.
Okay.
And the big selling point, what they're pushing there, is more consistency, which ultimately means you're going to get fewer, if not totally eliminate those flyers. And I think that's been whether it's game
Yeah.
improvement, certainly players distance, anybody who's played them, especially previous early designs like those flyers where, if you're a guy who hits your 7-iron 160, every now and then you would get the one that flies 185 and you're like, oh, that was awesome. Look at how powerful I am. And just, it's really a shame that it went over that stone wall behind the green on number 8. And so I guess I'll drop and hit another and hope I don't catch a flyer.
Yeah, and then you'll have
But did I mention the 185-yard 7-iron?
Right. Then then the next time you get 185, you hit 7 and you flush it and you're like, oh, that's awesome. And you come up 15 yards short. So like I said, early designs, the hard part was, right, like you could maximize distance in some ways by getting a lower spin design, but that there's a cliff with spin, right? And that's basically what a flyer is when you get not sufficient spin to maintain your control and trajectory. And when that spin drops from 6,000 to 4,000, 3,000, whatever, that ball just knuckles and takes off. So more consistent, like you're saying, they understand that. They've been doing it 5th generation. So more consistency, hopefully eliminating most, if not all, of those kind of flyers. That'd be good.
Yeah, and then you get, I call it refined aesthetic, if you will. That's kind of my catch-all go-to. So thinner top line, slightly more compact profile, new sole radius for better turf interaction. And then just some work on the exterior, the cosmetics, right? Like that.
Yeah.
Kind of the brush satin with a high polished kind of little bar that where the logo is underneath the centered logo. It's meant kind of the design, right? We talked about with QI35 subtle design cues and how TaylorMade, kind of creates, puts little things in there to suggest performance. And so kind of the new look with that polished area is meant to suggest the perimeter weighting,
right?
Enhanced
logo in the middle kind of feels more balanced, it's not
harmony, if you will.
Oh, harmony! I love
or
that.
Whatever that's worth. And
I love
then
that
kind of a little small milled pocket area that I guess suggests precision to an extent. So updated aesthetic, slightly smaller, which I like. Even if it's not always the best thing for me, I do like it. And then
but if you get the same amount of forgiveness or more, I mean, that's a trend, right? That's a thing we've seen. People are able to go with a smaller overall profile.
And then the rest kind of under the hood stuff, just tweak the internal structures to improve sound and feel and things like that. You're still getting your speed foam air. It's still very much a P790, and so that's a series of small improvements where realistically, if you have generation 4, you probably don't need to update. But if you have Gen 3 or older, you're going to start to see measurable performance differences. So, that's kind of thing.
I mean,
there you go.
I mean, that's so. My other question was P790, the player's distance iron category. Is this the iron most responsible for the advent and current existence of this category of irons?
Most responsible, yeah. Like I feel a little bad saying that because if you go back, right, you can find irons that qualify as players' distance that predate P7.
No, I started it. No, I had the first one. No,
I mean, you can talk about like the first generation of PXG, and certainly there was some legal stuff over that, right? That's very clear that PXG came first in that respect, and there were probably others. So, in that respect, maybe it shouldn't be, but at the same time, it has become the signature iron in the category. It is the iron that defines the category. It is, and more to the point, and why I think that's true is it is the iron by which everything else in the category is defined, judged, compared to. And so if you go into a presentation, I don't care whose presentation it is, if they are showing us a new player's distance iron and they're doing a competitive comparison, invariably P790 is on that comparison list. That is the one iron that is there every time. So when I say it is the iron by which everything else in the category is judged, that's not my opinion. That is based on the fact that it is in every single R&D presentation we look at.
I was just going to say, if there's a reason, again, you can go back to timelines and you can say, who had the idea first? What did it look like? Who said what? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's always going to be some level of disagreement, right? I'm sure that the Winklevoss twins and, Zuckerberg still think they got Facebook, Face Mash first, whatever it was, and they had their whole legal thing and social network, solid core balls. Titleist wasn't the first solid core ball, but you're not going to sit here and tell me it's not the one that defines the category now, because like I said, everybody and their mom compares their solid core ball to the Pro V1. So when we sit, like I said, in those presentations, P790 is the industry benchmark for players' distance irons.
Yeah,
so
I don't see a lot of ball presentations where the tour accuracy is the benchmark.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
so it's you can argue about who came first,
sure,
but ultimately it's who made the lasting impression, and it's inarguably
like
P790.
Yeah, P790. So super excited to, certainly see how that plays out as our testing evolves and those kind of things. I want to finish up with two topics here. I didn't think this was going to be controversial. I really didn't, but it turns out it is. Aim point. Now, you've seen this, right? How golfers read putts, and it wasn't. I didn't really think this was a divisive topic, but I would love to hear what people think, because, hey, aim point, I mean, it kind of came to light a little bit with, they're asking, I think it was Colin Morikawa before tournament last week, which was going to be at, Genesis. It was going to be at Riviera. Obviously, it ended up back at Torrey South, but he was basically saying, hey, aim point, why are you going to ban aim point? Well, we should ban long putters, and this was kind of in response to a little back and forth. It wasn't between
ban everything.
Yeah, ban everything.
Top to bottom. Can't do any of it. Sit at home, shut your mouth.
But what I found interesting, and that's why I'm not going to solve this, and we're not going to solve it today, is this is what happens, right? People start throwing out opinions as though they're fact, or, I tweeted on the little Twitter space at Robert Dameron, who was doing, I think it was PGA Tour Live or one of the early coverage ones. I'm like, because he was saying about how it takes so much longer to do aim point. I'm like, how do you know this? He's like, my eyes tell me. I'm like, well, that's awesome, but okay. Is aim point that big of a deal? Here, let me give you one other example that kind of made me go, kind of made me do one of those things. Was Tiger's sitting up there in the 18th tower, right? And he's doing his thing, and Scheffler hits an awesome shot, right, into 18, par 5. He has an eagle putt, not dissimilar from maybe what Tiger had at one point in his career on that hole too. And Tiger kind of mentions, he goes, man, I love how Scotty's breaking this putt up into segments. Scotty would walk up about a third of the way there, take a couple practice strokes, walk about 2/3 of the way up the putt. Again, sensing the breaks, okay, what do I think it's going to do in this first part? What do I think it's going to do in the second part? What do I think it's going to do in the third part? How does the putt finish? And Tiger was basically lauding him for saying, hey, that's a great way to read that putt. Not long before that, earlier in the telecast, Jim Nantz basically trying to kind of poke fun at I think it was Denny McCarthy, saying, oh, hey, people, that's not a dance he's doing around, that's aim point, kind of like, man, maybe you should back off that a little bit and, just be more natural and organic with your read. Don't get so mechanical. And again, I'm not saying one's better than the other. It's whatever works for you. But when Tiger basically said, hey, that's awesome that Scotty's breaking the putt up into thirds and doing it that way. In my mind, I'm like, well, that's aim point. He's doing almost the exact same thing that you would do. The only thing he's not doing is holding up fingers to tell him, okay, this is 2 degrees, 1 degree, whatever it is. So I want to hear from people out there. Like, is aim point that big of a deal? Are people really that fired up about it? Is this that divisive of a topic, or is it? Can I
assure you it is. It's probably second only to music on the golf course, Bluetooth speakers. But it's one of those things. All right, does it take too long? One, prove it. Okay. I don't think there's a lot of evidence, right? Because, as soon as somebody starts shuffling his feet and holding up fingers, you're like, oh, this takes forever. But a guy just kind of staring off or plumb bobbing or going back and forth with his caddy, I guess that doesn't count. And tell you, like, all of it takes too long. And so if saying, hey, it takes too long is your argument, I'm like, yeah, it all takes too long. Shot clock. Everybody gets a shot clock. Every shot,
do it under
aim
40
point or
seconds.
not.
I don't care what you do.
You get what you get. It doesn't matter. Read it any way you want. Stand over your ball any way you want.
Right.
Time limit.
If you want to putt standing on your head, do it. Whatever. Just
and then the other one that gets me is like, oh well, you're trampling guys' lines. You're destroying the green because you're standing over a spot and kind of shifting back and forth to try and feel the slope. And I'm like, okay, maybe, but guess what? What happened on that green before you got there? Right? Like everybody's walking around all over the green. As soon as a ball falls in a cup, right? Somebody's got to go stand right in front of the hole, put most of their weight on a single foot, reach down and get that ball out because that's how you do it. And so aim point doesn't do anything above and beyond what happens when anybody steps foot on any green anywhere in the world. And so like the idea of you're trampling guys' lines, like where was the last guy's line? The guy that putted 10 minutes before you got on the green, right? What did he do to your line? He walked
right in your line. You have no idea.
So just, I mean, I love it like watching you play early morning, right? And you're the second or third group out.
Yeah.
And you've got the morning dew and all of the footprints. You can see where everybody is walking. You're like, oh my God, those motherfuckers in the group in front of me trampled my line and the guys in front of them did it. Like, what is going on? Sons of bitches, right? Like, no, that's just golf. And so to think that, a guy kind of shifting his weight, almost effectively balancing his weight, but across his whole body is doing something radically different to the green than anybody else at any time during the day. It's bonkers stupid.
I'm just amazed people care this much about. Like I said, that part was new to me. I didn't realize that divisive. So I'd love to hear people's thoughts, comments. Let me know. Last question. You're gonna go get a golf lesson, Tony. You've taken lessons. I've started to take lessons. We had this on our Twitter over the weekend.
See what the going rate is. I haven't gone in a year plus.
Well, but somebody said like kind of this idea of a great lesson. How much would you pay for a great lesson? So I'm going to define a great lesson as this. So a great lesson, and the degree to which this can even happen in one lesson, I'm not convinced, but let's say it could. Let's say that a great lesson is a lesson that you come out of with something, it can be anything, that clearly impacts and benefits you in a way that you can apply to your game where you're going to play better, quantifiably better because of that. How much are you going to pay for that lesson?
I would think a couple $100.
You pay $200, $200-$300? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you're like, is it lasting improvement, right? Because we got
to say,
because that's the thing, right? Like you give me a 5-minute fix, cool, but when you think, right, golfers will pay, we know because we know what they cost, right? It's documented, factual information, $600 to $650 for a new driver, presumably because it's longer or more forgiving or straighter or ultimately something that makes you better on a golf course. Yep. Golfers think nothing. I mean, bitch and moan, we see it in the comments, but ultimately golfers really think nothing about spending $600, $650. But good, bad, or otherwise, whatever that driver gives you, it gives it to you every round. So that's my question, right? Lasting benefit.
Yeah, I'm gonna pay. I like that $200 number, and here's why. If it's just a golf lesson, not a great one, don't know. Because you're not sure it's a maintenance thing. It's this, it's that. I don't know. That's a different discussion. But if I'm going to get something that I can take to the course that's going to help me play better right away, I'm going to recoup that $200 pretty quickly. Whether it's from playing better in league, you get another skin, you get this, that, whatever. Think of it as an investment in yourself. And if you happen to enjoy putting a little money on the line, which I love to do, I have no problem gambling with my buddies. I obviously have no problem losing if you talk to them as well. but if I saw something where it's like, hey, I know every Friday there's going to be $300-$400 in the pot I could win, And if I got something that helps me on one swing or something that I improve and go, oh man, I'm going to turn that. It's an investment, right? It's something I'm going to take that to help me. So maybe you're out there, maybe you're different. Maybe you pay $3,000 for that. Maybe you wouldn't ever pay $30, but let us know. I don't know. Let us know what you think. It's February. We're trending. We're getting closer to warmer weather, Tony. It's not warm where you are. It's not warm where I am, but
I got wind whipping through here like crazy after snow and ice yesterday.
yeah, we got snow.
Maybe 17 additional inches of snow coming later this week.
Perfect.
It's the latest. So
all right. Well, you keep us posted. Yeah. People, let us know your comments, questions, things, hopes, dreams. Let us know. We'll talk to you next time. We out.